Please welcome our session moderator, founder and principal P.H. Douglas and Associates, and member of IWF Massachusetts, Priscilla Douglas.
Welcome to an elegantly modeled future, quantum computing. Quantum computing has the potential to radically transform our world by solving problems that today's computers cannot, and at incredible speeds. Quantum computing has the potential to transform existing industries, create new ones, solve problems that today seem unsolvable, and in the process, reveal unimaginable possibilities. Because quantum computing's potential is so great, the race is on to be the first. The winners, there won't just be one, the winners could alter the global balance of economic and military power. And for that reason, billions of dollars are being spent around the world on research. Well, this is a highly specialized field, so much so that globally, there are only estimated to be 5,000 quantum experts. Well, we have two of them with us today to explore to explore the possibilities and perils of this emerging technology. Well, you, IWF members, weighed in on this topic via our global members leadership poll, IWF Pulse. We asked you this question: do the benefits of quantum computing outweigh the potential security risk? And you said, 48% of you said yes, 11% said no, and 41% are undecided. So you're in the right place. Before we hear what our panelists think, I'd like to remind you that you can submit questions on the app and in the Q&A section. And we'll respond to those questions at the end of our session. So with us today is a leading quantum computing researcher who is currently a guest in the Department of Theoretical Nanophysics at the Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich. Now you're shaking your head, right? She is also the head of quantum innovation for IQM, the European leader in quantum computers. Please welcome Inés de Vega.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Professor of Mathematics and Neuroscience at Bar-Ilan University, Director of Advancing Women in Mathematics across the Americas at the University of Miami, Vice President of Arieli Capital, and the former Chief Scientist of the Israeli government, and past President of IWF Israel, Dr. Mina Teicher. So with that, so for most of us, quantum computing it's just over our head. It's technically over our head. And for some of us, it's a mystery. I'd like to start by asking you both, why should we care about this emerging technology? Inés, why don't you go first?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. I think we should care because it's gonna unleash in the future applications that we never thought that they could ever be tackled with classical computers. And the reason why we know that is because there is a very powerful mathematical theory behind that really allow us to know this for certainty, that is called complexity theory. And this theory tells us that for certain applications, we know that we will have an exponential speed up for solving a specific problem with a quantum computer with respect to the classical case. And this is very interesting, not only because of the very many different applications in different fields where we will be able to apply these quantum algorithms, but also because we will have a tool to understand nature, because we know that nature is quantum mechanical. And I think it was Richard Feynman back in the 80s, he was saying, well, if nature is quantum mechanical, why not using a quantum computer to actually understand it further? So I think this is very exciting.
Yeah, so the complexity is key to this.
Indeed, yes.
And Mina, why should leaders know about this emerging technology?
Well, the future is full of uncertainty. I mean, we don't know how the globe will look in 100 years. We don't know how technology will affect our life. And if AI will take off the human brain, and how does the human brain work? So, of course, all these technologies pose challenges to policymakers and make investment high-risk phenomena and gives a lot of business to psychologists. The quantum computer is certainly in our future, in our very near future, the 21st century, following the internet revolution of the 20th century, following the industrial revolution of the 19th century. So we should care. If there is a hint to the future, the far future or the near future, we should follow it, we should care, we should be prepared. Moreover, we know that there are many people that didn't adapt to the internet. And there is a big digital gap on the individual level. But we, women leaders, are on the right side of the digital gap, and we want to stay on that side. As women leaders, we should not be surprised by the changes that quantum will enforce on our life. We should be prepared, but moreover, we should study the societal grand challenges that will come with quantum and try to address them ahead of time.
So one of the key words that you said there is uncertainty, and that's one of the things that quantum computing allows over a classic computing. Is that correct? The algorithms.
Well, I used uncertainty in general for life, but it's true what you say, that quantum has uncertainty in the way it answers questions.
Yes.
So, I mean, classical computer is built on electronics and the principle of classical mechanics. And quantum computer is built on the principle of quantum mechanics. So what's the difference between classical mechanics and quantum mechanics? In a nutshell, in classical mechanics, a particle is supposed to have exactly one state, one position, and one momentum. I'm here and I'm looking there. Mm-hmm. In quantum mechanics, a particle can have two states in the very same time. This is very difficult to absorb by men. But for us women, it's not difficult. You know how it is. I love him and I don't love him at the very same time. I love myself. So, a classical computer is build, process, and store information in bits. A quantum computer builds, store, and process information in qubits. So a qubit is a small quantum system that have two states in the very same time. 2 qubits could have already 4 states in the very same time, and 20 qubits would have more than 1 million states in the very same time, and multiple qubits would have zillions of states in the very same time, and they can do zillions of simultaneous operations in the very same time. So while the classical computer can do the same operation, but one after the other. So the simultaneous versus one after the other, this is the reason for the enormous speed of a quantum computer, and that's why eventually it will take over.
Yes.
But there are 3 buts. The current quantum computer that exists today is very small in the sense of number of qubits. Let's say just in numbers. 2001, the first IBM quantum computer had 7 qubits.
Right.
Nowadays, we have a quantum computer of few hundred qubits. And Google promised, and IBM promised by the end of 2025, a quantum computer with 4,000 bits. which is a lot. But for comparison, the classical computer, the bigger one, has 10 to the power of 21 bits, which is a number with 21 digits.
Yes.
So it's much bigger than that. So of course, for the moment, it's much faster. So you could ask why physicists don't build a bigger quantum computer. The problem, the essence of a qubit, it has tendency to collapse or disappear after a short distance or a short time. So this is the challenge for the physicist.
Absolutely.
The other but is the size of the quantum computer. Currently, it's still very big. These atoms need to run around. You remember in the 70s, we had a computer in 2 huge rooms, while our smartphone that you didn't allow me to take here is the same kind of, calculation now. But generally, the third remark, that we simple people, we have to adjust to understand that we'll have to absorb quantum system in spite of the fact that we are not so comfortable with the superposition and the probability attitude.
Right. So hold that thought for right now, because those are some of the technical parts of it. And I want to stay right now in terms of, Inés, in terms of describing quantum computing for a non-scientific. What would you add to that? What else do people need to know? And let me ask you this. A bunch of you went to LUMI yesterday and saw the quantum computing. Let's see your hands. So we've got some ringers in the audience now. Yes.
Very good. Okay, so I think Mina has already touched upon this idea of superposition, that quantum computers that are formed by qubits that are kind of the counterpart of bits, but that have the property that instead of having only a 0 or a 1, they can be in a superposition of 0 and 1. And so this is very important, the superposition, but they also have another property which is very intriguing, which is that of entanglement. And what this means is that if you have one qubit here and another one in the, let's say, the other extreme opposite side of your quantum register, of your quantum computer, once they get entangled, it means that whatever you are doing with this qubit will instantaneously affect the state of the other, even if it's far away. This is what Einstein was calling the spooky action at a distance. He was horrified.
Say that again. Say that slower.
Spooky action at a distance. And he was terrified by this, like many other physicists back then, because at this moment when they were discovering this property, physics was mechanicistic, so everything was about particles hitting each other, and everything was about having really contact interactions. But here we are talking about a property that has to do with particles, in this case qubits, having instantaneous interaction with each other and being strongly correlated. And this is very interesting because actually nature does that. So we know that molecules are composed of, besides the nuclei, they have electrons, and we know that electrons tend to form a strong correlated states, meaning that they really can sustain a lot of entanglement. And that's the reason why, for instance, quantum computers are very good at describing this kind of systems.
Yeah. So the complexity, uncertainty, all of those things are associated. Anything else you'd like to add, Mina, to that before I ask you about how are we going to use it? What are the applications?
Let's move to the next question.
So we have these quantum computers, and they are elegant, they are beautiful to look at, but what's the practical? What problems will they help us solve?
Well, there is a debate whether the quantum computer can solve a problem that classical computer cannot. The main debate is between the two main players, IBM and Google. In theoretical terms, it's already solvable. In 2018, two mathematicians from Weizmann Institute, one currently in Princeton, one currently in Stanford, they presented the problem that quantum can solve and classical cannot. But this is a very theoretical problem. It's not daily life. It's not even technological life. It's not the universe. It's the philosophy of computing. A year later, in 2019, Google presented a problem that quantum can solve and classical cannot, but IBM contested the scope of this achievement. And also the later example, they are still debating. I don't want to take sides between IBM and Google. But whether there is advantage of quantum over classical in solvability, that's not the issue. The main point is the speed. I mean, the speed that the quantum computer will have is going to help a lot of aspects, change a lot of aspects of our life. I didn't say help, it might change to different ways.
In what way?
For example,
change from what to what?
Because it analyzes data.
Yes.
And get knowledgeable decisions based on that data in instance. So something that takes months for the classical would take instance. So it can really work for us. So it will change AI totally, in brackets, for good and for bad. It will help us solve the big challenges of the 21st century, like precise medicine, health system, climate change, many other issues. This is, of course, good. But it will also speed and develop brain-machine interface, and that can be for good, like artificial organs, artificial vision, etc., but also for bad, for manipulating our brain.
So they, let me just ask you this question in terms of these applications. Quantum computers use a lot of energy. So, you know, we think if we're going to solve climate change, but we could be making our situation worse with these types of quantum computers.
Well, the energy issues still need to be seen, because the classical computer also takes a lot of energy, but for a longer period of time. But there is another resource which needs to be noticed. It's helium. In order for the
It's what?
Helium, the gas helium.
Oh, okay.
In order for a quantum computer to work, for these little qubits not to collapse, as they threat you to do, it needs to be very cold, but not cold like in the room, not Finland cold. It needs to be really cold.
Like
the minimum temperature that possible. And only helium can make a system so cold. And it's a mineral. It's not something in the human brain that has no limit. There is a limit. And then many other devices, medical devices and imaging devices that use it. So this is a point really to notice.
Yeah. So when you say cold, we're talking about like the moon, minus 459 degrees, really, really, really cold, in order for these to have a stable environment.
Celsius, but it's cold.
So Inés, what are some of the other areas where quantum could speed up innovation?
Yeah, for instance, let's take drug design or drug development. This is, I think, a very interesting example. And there, quantum computers can help in two ways. So one of the ways it can help is when you actually want to develop a drug, and for it to happen, you need to understand very precisely the electronic properties of a specific set of molecules. And then, as I said before, quantum computers are very good at really describing very accurately these electronic properties so that you can, for instance, calculate things such as binding affinity between a certain molecule and a protein. And then another kind of algorithm or quantum algorithm that can be helpful is optimization. Because you could, for instance, want to come up with a new drug by looking in a certain or out of a certain number of candidates and in a very huge chemical space. And then quantum computers, because they can live in a superposition of many different states. So imagine that each of these states is representative of one candidate of your drug. And each of these candidates have different properties. So you want to look for the candidate that has the properties that you desire. For instance, that they are biocompatible, efficient, etc. And so because the quantum computer is living in this superposition, what we know is that in the moment that one state in this superposition corresponds to the target, really the drug that you are looking for, the quantum computer will find it very efficiently. So this is really a class of problems that is called optimization, in which quantum computers are very good at. So that would be another way.
Yes.
This relates to what I said at the beginning that it does zillions of operations in the very same time
Exactly.
while looking for the correct answer to a problem.
Exactly.
So it's in drugs and it's many other
Yes,
questions.
any search problem. No, it can also be, for instance, looking for the best route for airplanes, such that they really pollute less, so that you can really optimize the routing of airplanes.
Yeah, so that's one of the paths. It's, you get a direct line. I think we need to go to questions now. I'm looking at my clock. Is that true?
No, we started late.
Huh?
We started
No,
late.
not yet. Oh, okay, good. All right. Thank you. It takes a village. One of the applications that people keep talking about is this whole area of encryption. And I'm wondering, Mina, can you talk about that and why people think that this is going to be, quantum computing is going to help us so much in this area?
Well, first they say that it's sabotaging national security. I mean, the quantum computer as exists now is, the classical computer as exists now is using a crypto system that will be broken by quantum computer. So this crypto system that we use now, every entity, military, government agency, health system, financial markets, will be broken by the quantum computer. That means that private information will cease to be private, and sensitive databases will become public, and every internet interaction that we do will be revealed. Of course, it has also implication on national security, because army plans for defense and attack could leak. But it's not, national security is not about war and territory, it's about protecting our infrastructure. And assume that a hostile entity will get command of quantum capability before the good guys are coming with a quantum-safe crypto system, then, of course, all our infrastructure are in danger. It's called electrical grid, aviation system, cellular networks, city control centers, etc. And my worst fear always is manipulating our brain.
Yeah.
So this is the danger. So we have to
Now you frighten them.
No, we have to come. I will
Yes.
come you in a moment. We have to come. We have to come with the new crypto system that is quantum safe. The current one that everybody is using is called RSA. This is based on property of prime numbers and a theorem proven 300 years ago by the French mathematician Pierre de Fermat. So quantum computer can break it because it has a very fast way, using all these multiple ways, to factorize a number to product of two prime numbers. That's all what you need to kill the crypto system everybody is using now. Factorize a number to product of two prime numbers. Classical computer can also do it, but it takes months to do it. And this is in seconds, so that's the big difference. So since 28 years, when Shor showed that quantum can break RSA, many mathematicians all over the world try to find an alternative quantum-safe crypto system. I myself, for the last 20 years, I'm working on producing a quantum-safe crypto system based on braids. Braids is like hair, but there's a mathematical concept of braids. And together with my very smart student, or maybe my very smart students and me, we managed to create a quantum-proof crypto system, but not good enough, not 100%. But in the same time, we use the same technology to attack other attempts of other people. So those don't exist as well. But you don't have to worry. That's what I promised you. At the end, you don't worry, because there is still no quantum computer. By the time the physicist will create a quantum computer sizable that can do all this job, the mathematician will create a quantum-proof crypto system.
Yeah.
Yay.
So, because of the possible economic and national security implications of quantum, there's a tremendous focus on investing. Inés, who's ahead? China or the West?
Okay, the $1 million question. Well, I have to say there are lots of things we don't know because precisely because of these national security reasons, some nations are very secretive with their programs, and China is among them. But what we know is, for instance, what has been published. And I think Mina was mentioning this before. We know that in 2019, Google was publishing this supremacy result in which this problem, where a specific mathematical task was solved in, I think, around a few minutes, and whereas for a classical computer, you would have needed to have like 10,000 years. And so this was really outstanding. But then a couple of years later, China was publishing a couple of papers, I think it was in 2021, that was even improving further these results. So they were able to do that with more qubits and therefore better. And then I think early this year, Google has hit back with another result. Now they use 70 qubits. That has even improved further the result from China. But you can see how contested it is. Now, when it comes to commercialization, I think it is the turn of Western countries and companies to really be, I think, more advanced than Chinese companies. Because, for instance, companies such as IBM has a cloud service, I think also Amazon, and they really offer access to their quantum computers, and there is also a software that is open source so that people can actually program their quantum algorithms and run them in the quantum computers. And other companies like the one I'm working on, IQM, we are actually delivering quantum computers on premises in high-performance supercomputing centers.
And there's a big difference between allowing access only via the cloud
Absolutely.
And having it on site.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
because IBM didn't even allow.
Yes.
Talk a little bit, yeah.
Yes, actually, there is a good reason for it. So the United States is very protective to this technology, and actually the hardware, quantum hardware, has a very hard time to leave US terrain. And there is one example, for instance, of a quantum computer that was sold to the German government, to the Fraunhofer Institute. But the only way that the quantum computer could actually come to Europe from the United States, that was IBM that was delivering this quantum computer, was by actually placing the quantum computer within the premises of IBM. And that was very, very criticized internally in the German government because it was public money, and many people were saying, okay, why on earth did we buy a quantum computer that we cannot even see, no? And so there are many things happening in the background that are quite interesting, lots of national security interest. And then what I love about quantum computers is that at the end of the day, it's all an enterprise of humanity. So I think there is something behind that is there that has to do more with advancement of knowledge that I think goes beyond any boundary. But of course, both aspects are there.
Absolutely. What would you say, Mina, about who's ahead? The country level or at the business level? What are you seeing?
I cannot say much more than her. She's more up to date about the country issues. I believe in IBM. In IBM, in 1929, when many companies went bankrupt, IBM stayed alive because they say, we believe in the future. So I believe in IBM.
What advantages will early adopters have? So whoever gets there first, and we know the race is on, what do you think about that? What are the advantages?
Yes, I think because quantum computing is still a little bit esoteric, so it's not something that everyone can simply say, okay, I'm gonna, simply use a quantum computer. There needs to be a period of time during which companies will have to get educated, so they will have to have some people that actually learn about quantum computers. There are already resources there for this to happen. So you don't need to be a quantum physicist to be able to actually, for instance, envision which kind of, for instance, problems in your company you could tackle with a quantum computer. But you need to study it for a while. So you need to create a team of experts of quantum ready experts in your company, maybe with a couple of people is enough, so that they can already identify which problems or bottlenecks can be alleviated in the future with quantum computers. And that, of course, will be very helpful for companies to already even create their patent portfolio in the quantum realm, because this is still at the very initial stages, and therefore positioning yourself as a company will give you a lot of competitive advantage.
And so, as you said, one of the things you believe in IBM, IBM has this open source so that you can actually go to their website and you can learn everything that you want to know about quantum computers. You can even download the algorithms. You can try everything because it exists in the cloud. So that's one way that they're trying to develop more expertise in this areas. But I'm wondering, Mina, you know, this whole area of winners and losers and having, you know, the so-called digital divide that people talked about, is quantum computing going to make it wider?
Sure. Quantum computing will widen the digital gap, and on the three levels, on the individual level, on the company's level, and the international level. The individual level is like every technology that comes in, widen the digital gap, but quantum will do more because it's a new way of thinking. It's probability rather than determinism. On the company's entity levels, I wanted to say a few things, but you said everything about the companies. So those that will not prepare will disappear. So it's not widening the digital gap. It's almost for infinity, because some companies will disappear if they don't do adjustment in visionary way. But I'm worried about the international digital gap between developing countries and developed countries, because the capacity that you need in order to install a quantum computer, to educate, to train, to maintain, and then to operate is very costly. Like I mentioned the helium, but all this human power that needs to be educated is very costly and not clear how they can do it. But since the future of workforce is in the developing countries, it's the duty of the developed countries and all the international organizations like UN, UNESCO, OECD, World Bank, professional societies to make sure that quantum capabilities comes to the developing countries. Communication is like food. You must have it. We had food last session. So communication is essential to everybody, to take care of everybody, like food, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. What will you add to that?
Yes, I love what you said. I really agree, and I think it's indeed we already have a digital gap with so-called classical computers, and of course, quantum, as Mina has very well covered, requires even more resources. And obviously, this means more money, and this also, of course, makes quantum computers less accessible to people. And then I would add that from an ethical point of view, it's very hard to get ready to what comes. We are already seeing how, for instance, machine learning is creating lots of scenarios that 5 years ago we didn't even think about. And I think with quantum computers, something similar will happen. So for instance, let's go back to my favorite example of molecules and finding new compounds and new materials very quickly, because now you have these super machines. Then what happens when you create a lot of new molecules and then you put them in the environment, you put them in your products, and what is the impact of these new molecules that you are creating in human health or in your environments? And for instance, we know that, for instance, there is a very powerful way to produce DNA recombination with quantum computers. This is also belonging to this class of optimization problems. And so what happens when we have super fast machines to produce this gene editing? And this will also bring a lot of additional problems.
So as a researcher, you're asking these questions. You know, when you have an emerging technology, sometimes people say, well, how are we going to regulate this? What are the ethical issues? But in the development, you're beginning to ask these questions now.
Yes, that's indeed what we are trying to do in my company. So we have a very, I would say, bold lemma. We say we build quantum computers for the well-being of all humanity. And when I came into the company, I was like, oh my God, I mean, what are these guys doing? This is really a huge claim, no? And of course, it's lovely, but I thought, okay, how on earth are we going to do that? And of course, it's very difficult because we receive a lot of requests from companies that they are already wanting to get quantum ready. And some of them are interested on us helping them to, in the future, optimize, for instance, drilling processes or improving oil extraction. And this is a problem for us because on top of that, our leading investor is called World Fund, and it only is a venture capital that only invests on companies that can prove that they will have a positive impact on climate, and which of course I love. And what we are doing in our company, we are creating an ethics committee, and we are going to have stakeholders from different departments, and we are going to be trying to solve this difficult task of trying to assess which of these requests for applications are, at least at first sight,
yes,
because you never know, going to be beneficial for humanity. And well, we hope we will.
That's critical, absolutely critical. I'm going to have one last question for each of you, but I want to go to the audience questions now, okay? And the first one is from Shelley Ann Mead, IWF France, IWF UK, and she asks, what can quantum physics teach us about human behavior?
Wow.
I think I mentioned at the beginning that we are not so comfortable with quantum because we prefer determinism and the logical switches of the classical computer, and this uncertainty brings a little bit of uncomfort. But I believe that eventually, when there is a quantum computer, people might forget that this is a probability answer. They will get an answer from the computer, and they won't know that it's 99.99%. For them, it will be an answer. But in the meantime, there is unrest about it, and you learn about human nature, because we want answers. We don't want maybe.
So we're going to move from a binary world to one in which probabilistic and uncertainty, right?
Yes.
The connections. Next question. What are the from Yin Yin Tan from IWF Singapore? Thank you. What are the problems that quantum computing cannot solve? And what are the associated ethical issues? We started to talk a little bit about that. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that the ethical issues comes mainly when it comes to brain-machine interface. I mean, I think in general there are at least 4 challenges for humanities before we can work with quantum computer. I mean, the one first for mathematicians to create a new quantum-safe crypto system, then for the companies and economy to prepare, for the international organization, as I said before, but for policymakers and philosophers, because the brain-machine interface that quantum will make it so much quicker and powerful, carry with it a lot of ethical questions, you know, about responsibility, about liability, about free will. We don't even know in our brain how free will is working, and of course, brain-machine interface will kill it. It has implication on politics, on many, many aspects. So I think we have to come up with a new ethics. What we know about regular email, for example, is not enough. You know, in the past, in the old past, when you get a letter and the letter said someone's name on it, you don't open this letter. You get an email that was supposed to come to someone else, and you get it people treat it differently because maybe they really wanted me. Maybe I am in the CC, maybe something. You open a letter that wasn't supposed to you.
Right.
So you need already for now a new ethics, but when quantum will come, you need super quantum and super ethics.
maybe I can
Yes.
also answer the first part of the question.
Yes.
I mean, quantum computers can solve everything. It's a universal theory of computation in the sense that any algorithm, so anything that can be solved with this Turing theory that classical computers use can also be solved with a quantum computer, but maybe not efficiently. And that's how only for certain classes of problems or algorithms, it has been proven that quantum computers are actually faster than classical computers. The nice thing is that we are talking about classes of algorithms, which means that if you are able to, for instance, make simulations, then this means that you can really cover for many different applications, so it really is very powerful. But indeed, we are talking only about a few specific classes of algorithms that have been proven to be more efficient with a quantum computer. And then when it comes to quantum machine learning, it has not been mathematically proven to be more efficient than classical machine learning. So I think this is what Mina has already pointed out, that this is a big unknown. For me, we are talking about a very complex system, a quantum computer, and when you add on top of this machine learning, what can go wrong? I mean, it's going to be, I think, very surprising what we are going to be finding, but we don't know yet.
Yeah,
so.
We don't know. It's going to reveal all these new possibilities. So Maureen Boyd from IWF Canada asked, did quantum computing play a role in understanding and finding vaccines for COVID-19, or could it play a role in mitigating future pandemics?
She answered it already.
Yeah.
She said that quantum computer is very important in drug development. Sorry, I mean, you said.
Yes. I mean, about COVID-19, I suspect the answer is no. I don't think that was the case. This is too early for tackling these problems that come to us.
But they use
now.
Supercomputers
But
in the drug development.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think in the future, yes, in the future they will be helpful to, for instance, target a specific drug for instance, a vaccine.
Yeah. Thank you. Isabel Menard from IWF Canada, how is quantum computing positively impacting the banking sector worldwide? So
Not
remember, we haven't implemented quantum computing as of yet, right?
Yes.
But it needs to have a very good crypto system before the banking can use it. Of course, now the banking cannot use it because it's not safe for now. So we have to wait. Also, the real banking, Bitcoin, everything has to wait till there is a quantum safe crypto system.
Yeah. So the timeline, we didn't talk about the timeline associated with quantum computing.
Yes.
So let's do that before we go to the next question. When are we going to see it?
I think that it will be sooner than we think, probably less than 10 years. I mean, I say that IBM promised 4,000 in the end, in the 2025. Google promised 1 million in 2029. But let's say that it will take about 10 years. But what's more important in my eyes, to use very good these 10 years, to understand the risks and to confront the challenges and work on them. So in the risks, there are 4 main risks highlighted. I highlight 4 main risks. It's the cybersecurity we talked about, the digital gap we talked about, but there's an unemployment issue. I mean, mainly in the high-tech sector, because the knowledge that needed to work with quantum science and technology is not common among the people that are currently in the information technology. So people will have to adjust, people will have to move, people will have to learn more STEM than they learn today. And the last one, of course, is what I mentioned, the vulnerability of brain-machine interface. But in spite of all that, I must add one very important position of mine, that science cannot be stopped, regardless of the risks and the challenges. Science and scientists keep going, because that's human nature, and that's the goal of humans on this globe.
Yes. Inés, what do you think about
Yes.
the timeline?
Well-
When do you hope to see some practical applications?
Let's see. First of all, I'd like to say a couple of words about what is really hindering us from having quantum computers now. And I would say there are two main problems. So one is that these beautiful quantum states that are, entangled and with superpositions, all this quantumness actually disappears very easily when these qubits are coupled to the environment. But okay, then you tell me, okay, let's isolate them. But we cannot, because we need to operate on them. We need to measure them. We need to make operations with them, quantum gates. And so we need to find the correct way of addressing the qubits while at the same time keeping them relatively isolated from the environment. And this is why, by the way, you put them in very low temperatures. But then the second problem also has to do with entanglement. And it has to do with the fact that quantum computers are very complex and very hard to calibrate. So when you really want to have a good characterization of all the qubits, in the moment you want to characterize one qubit, you are actually affecting the others. So it's very hard to make individual characterization of each of the elements, which is, of course, something that you need because you want to have a very precise knowledge of your machine so that you operate it precisely for your algorithms. So keep in mind these two problems for the timeline. And then about the timeline, double-clicking a bit in what Mina was saying, I think in the next 5 years we will start to see some niche examples where quantum computers will outperform classical computers to solve maybe toy models of a battery, for instance. But only toy models, something that is interesting for researchers, but not yet for, I don't know, automotive companies that want to have more advanced generations of batteries. And this will happen, I think, in around 5 years. Then in 10 years, what we will find out is that this speed up of quantum computers to simulate, for instance, batteries will also be true for more complex models of batteries. And this is the moment when industry will start to get more interested about this kind of solutions. This coincides a bit with the time scale that Mina was mentioning. But then what I would like to mention in addition is that what we are waiting for, and this won't happen before the next 10 to 15 years, is these so-called fault-tolerant quantum computers. And so fault-tolerant quantum computers are quantum computers that contain so many qubits, maybe millions of qubits, that you can actually redundantly encode your information in them and use error correction codes. And actually, once you have these fully error-corrected quantum computers, again in 15 years, is when you will be able to unleash all these different applications that we were talking about.
So it's an exciting future. It's an elegantly modeled future, this whole area of quantum computing. And remember, each one of you has a classic computer on your desk and have access to in order to stay current and to move into this area. I want to please thank this wonderful panel, Inés de Vega and Mina Teicher. Didn't you? I hope you didn't you love their explanations? I mean, nanophysics and physics, they make it accessible to all of us. You'll be able to chat with them during the break. And I want to thank the audience, too, for your questions as well. So right now, we're going to take a 15-minute break. And when we come back, we're going to unlock the secret to happiness.